Stadia podcast, episode number 72. You're joining us for one of the longest running Stadia podcasts this side of Google Maps. We've got a great show lined up for you this week where we're going to be talking about football coming home, exciting new games on Stadia, the Embracer Group buying everything up, and a little news story that you might have heard that went live last Monday that may have caused a bit of an uproar within the community. But we are here a week detached from that to bring all you lovely people the Stadia and gaming news roundup for a lovely podcast episode with myself, Chris, one of your hosts, alongside the techie teacher himself, Mr. Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good today, mate. We've got a nice little thing in the bag that we need to talk about shortly, so I'm feeling pretty chipper about that. But yeah, other than that, I can't really complain. It's been a good week.
It has indeed. And below him, we've got the man of many pixels joining us also, Mr. Richie. How are you faring this week?
I'm pretty good. Got myself some new glasses, so refreshing the look a bit.
So you can see, is your vision deteriorated at all, or is this just aesthetic new glasses?
Actually, my vision's improved slightly.
Hey,
hey, congratulations!
It's one eye, like half a point up, but it's better.
You know what? It's better than getting worse. Better than getting worse.
Eye health is good.
Eye health is good. Sponsored by Apple. This show, we do have a busy week lined up for you, but we obviously probably want to address a few things. First of all, we made 1K, gents. We finally passed 1K subscribers on our YouTube channel, so thank you very much to all you amazing people out there who've shown us support. Obviously, it was a bit of a bittersweet moment for us. I think we ticked over the 1K mark on the Monday on our Stadia-based channel, and then the news dropped about Stadia Games and Entertainment being shuttered, which we are going to talk about a little bit later on in the show. But the biggest story is you wonderful people out there have pushed us past that wonderful 1K mark, and we can't be more thrilled. I don't think it's wonderful. So thank you very much for all that.
Yes.
And as part of our kind of housekeeping this week, gentlemen, we wanted to talk about what our plans are for 1K, because we've been promising it for a while, been teasing it as we've been creeping along the road for 1K. So if you are here and you are new to the channel, by all means, like, share, subscribe, and push us even further beyond that 1K. What's up next? Is 2 our next target? Is that realistic, or do people just go for 1 million at this point? Is that the...
Did you get 1K
million next?
I don't know. I think it really depends. Like, let's focus on getting the new stuff for 1K sorted, and we can look at the numbers again.
That's a very good point, Richie. Nice and say. Only someone with 0.1 of an eye improvement would say something as notable as that. 0.5. Wow. Okay. But yeah, so basically what we wanted to do is refresh the channel a little bit. We've been doing this kind of look for about a year or so now, with video format, of course, and our lovely audio podcast listeners out there. But we have been doing a few things behind the scenes. We've done live streams and stuff, and we just kind of wanted to pull it all together. And for those eagle-eyed viewers, you may notice right below me on the video podcast, we've got a refreshed look for the logo. Not too dissimilar. We didn't want to rock the boat too much. After all, we're not Phil Harrison, if you get that one, gents. Sorry, Phil. But we are here to give you through a bit of a refresh. So, exciting news. Podcast has had a refresh in terms of the logo look. Same location, same distribution service. That hasn't changed. However, the channel is going to be getting a bit more of a refresh. And the kind of biggest change for us is a couple of new exciting shows in the pipeline. So, what I'll probably do is I'll throw it over to Richie, first of all, because you, sir, are going to be taking over our post show, which we traditionally do immediately after the podcast, but we give it to our patrons 5 days early, and it goes out on free feeds every Friday. Would you like to give the lovely people a bit of an update about what that's going to look like going forward?
Yeah, so we are still going to be giving it to patrons 5 days early. That's not changing there, so don't worry about that. Once we've got through all the checks and balances for the YouTube membership program, we'll also be looking to bring it early over there. But it's also getting a bit of a rebrand, because it's basically its own show at this point. So we're rebranding it Sounds of Stadia SideQuest, and I'm going to be hosting it.
Yeah, SideQuest. So obviously post-show was just kind of a thing that it started off as. And,
it was a post-show at first.
It literally was a post-show. But yeah, the topical discussions became great, and we love some of the questions you sent in for us and doing something a little bit different that wasn't as news-centric. So the fact that, we're now going to rebrand that SideQuest, it's our little adventure. Those of you who've been listening carefully as well will have noticed I've actually mentioned SideQuest in the last 2 episodes. So you can go back and check those
Easter
out.
eggs.
Those
I
are
think
Easter
I've been
eggs.
teasing myself a little bit because...
Okay, Richie, whatever you do in your own time.
On
With your perfect
on the last
vision.
few episodes of the post show, I've actually had my light and green to go with the new colour scheme.
Very clever. Well, we'll talk about
Easter egg there.
We'll talk about colour schemes as well. But that's not everything we wanted to bring you, of course. We still have our Thursday night live streams. They are not going anywhere. We love playing with you in the community every Thursday night over on our YouTube channel. They're staying exactly the same. But I'll pass it over to our other co-host, Tom, who's going to be taking lead on an exciting new project. So, Tom, do you want to tell the people about that?
Absolutely. Stay tuned because we're going to be releasing some information about the pilot episode very soon. But I'd like to introduce today the Sounds of Stadia Hotspot show as well, which is going to be our community-based talk show, really, I suppose, more than anything, which we'll be bringing you live on YouTube with some of the well-known content creators you know out there within the community. But it's also an opportunity for questions to be asked backwards and forwards as well, in a live sort of platform, really, where we can engage with it. We can have a bit of fun with it. There'll be some little fun events going on at the same time as well, but it's really a chance to sort of like unite the community in one place without the game aspect, but still get the opportunity to sort of like sit down and talk to each other and, you know, have that back and forth more than anything. So we're really looking forward to bringing that to you in the very near future. Like I say, stay tuned and we'll be releasing some more info about that coming soon.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We've wanted to do this for a while. We've obviously collaborated with members of the community for so long, but the format of our podcast, which essentially is our core show, doesn't really, with us being a 3 already, it doesn't really give much room to have guests on. And we do try when we're missing certain individuals, but we do want to do something that involves you a lot more. And when we look at the other content creators out there, they do a lot of community focus based things using a system called Streamlabs. It's something like that where the chat's more involved, it's more visual, and we can invite guests on quite freely without having to uproot the entire OBS layout of our show. So keep tuned with that. Tom's taking lead on that. So we've got some very exciting things lined up. But we will still, of course, be bringing you first looks and let's plays and all the other stuff we've been doing so far to this date. But to keep that all coherent for you people out there, we're going to give everything a fresh colour palette, a new scheme. So when you look at the thumbnails on our YouTube channel, they're quite distinct from each other. So podcast will remain Stadia Red. That's not going anywhere. Richie, your new show SideQuest, as you mentioned there, has got a lovely shade of adventurer green over it. So it is a side quest out into the jungle of gaming, I suppose. Tom, Hotspot, we're thinking about going with a blue, which is ironic because it's Hotspot, but
it's a nice cool blue for a hot topic.
Exactly. Our live streams are looking at probably focusing more on a vibrant yellow, and then our first looks will be in a dash of purple. So essentially, when they do drop in your feed, you can kind of have an immediate idea of what they are. So plenty in the pipeline, gents. Plenty to keep us super busy. But we are excited, and we have wanted to do a bit of a refresh for some time. We were going to do it at the beginning of the year, but then it felt smarter.
We were so close to 1K at the beginning of the year. It's like, let's hit that milestone and do it.
Yeah, it felt more genuine. So for you wonderful people out there who have supported us throughout all this, who have gave us all them likes, those subscribes, those follows, your time, your energy and your effort, we do wholeheartedly appreciate it, and it's pushing us to bring you better content. So we couldn't do it without you, essentially. And thank you very much for sticking by. So that's the rundown of celebrations, but that's not what you people are here for at the end of the day. You are here to listen to us run down all the Stadia news. So, Tom, without further delay, let's get into the
super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka the news.
The news sponsored by our new Patreon this week, because I forgot to mention it before you did the news. So, because of course we're absolute professionals now. Patreon shout out to our brand new one, Brendan McBee, joining us over on Patreon, of course. He gets things like SideQuest 5 days early, exclusive chats with us, and you get to see posts and news before this went up, because our lovely patrons actually knew about our refresh ages ago, because we told them it and we teased it and we showed them the new logo and a couple of other things as well. So the news this week is sponsored by Brendan McBee. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you indeed. So the news, lads. We do it every week. We don't really have breaking news stories that often on this podcast because we do it every Sunday, and the news is wound down for the week. We kickstarted last week with quite a bombshell of a drop. That was Mr. Phil Harrison, obviously our Lord and Saviour, high leader up on his throne, I guess.
Lord and Saviour's a bit stretch.
Yeah, a bit of a stretch. Up on his little Cloud 9, wherever it may be. Dropped us a blog post about Stadia's Games and Entertainment's first party studios closing. obviously that's the biggest news story of the week, but no doubt everyone out there who has tuned into the Stadia ecosystem like us three are, you're probably fed up of that by now, if we're honest. It's been a long week of podcasts, shows, topical discussions, tweets, Twitter threads, journalists going to town on Stadia, Google Graveyard, all that kind of stuff. So we're not going to talk about that for the bulk part of this show. We will discuss it at the back end, but if you want to check out a bit more, we've actually got an hour-long special that we went live with on Monday for breaking news, where we gave our thoughts and expressions. So if you do want our takes on that story, head over to the YouTube channel, check that one out. But for those of you podcast listeners out there, we've got a great show lined up with actual more gaming news, which is what we're all here for. We're all here to play games and talk about games. So let's get into it with story number 1, gents. It's kicking off, quite literally. Football is coming home. We got a date for FIFA 21 on Google Stadia. Finally, Richie, I know you're excited as much as I am. I don't know about you, Tom. Where are your playing field right now with FIFA?
I'm actually relatively sort of taken by it. I'm kind of interested at this point. I normally wouldn't be quite so invested in FIFA, but with the recent take of Madden, I feel like I've almost got this hunger for EA Sports at the moment. So I'm really kind of glad we're actually getting it, because something's got to fill the void for me not having NHL yet. So yeah, bring it on, bring it home, lads.
So it was announced as part of the it was like a EA press release announcement as part of not necessarily focused on Stadia, but it was to do with FIFA in general and the earnings reports, and to do with brokership deals between the Champions League, copyright images, and all that kind of stuff that coincides with football. And in the midst of it, they announced that they want to expand EA Sports with a new 5-year sponsorship with the Champions League, and expand it to PC on free-to-play, FIFA Online, which is one of the titles that's very big in China at the moment. That's being rolled out and potentially reach 80 million players in more than 15 new countries. And then additionally, the franchise will launch on Stadia this March 17th. St. Patrick's Day? March 17th?
St. Patty's Day.
Is it?
I think it might be, you know.
So for our Irish friends out there, give or take, is it 17th or 18th? None of us are Irish, so apologies.
St. Patrick's Day is the 17th of March.
Hey! So there you go.
Wow.
So crack open your Guinness, get your lucky clovers out, I guess, and enjoy some FIFA, because it's coming to Stadia. With the caveat, I guess, gents, that I've done the maths, I've crunched the numbers, because of course I give you a weekly update on this at the moment. Stadia is expecting FIFA. As of today, it's 121 days behind the platform. Come launch day, it will have been out on other platforms for 159 days, which is 5 months and 8 days late. So, Richie, you've been quite vocal about this being price point is key, and also, I guess, how far into the season, because for those who watch English football and European football, the seasons tend to wrap up in May. So getting the game in middle of March is... Essentially, my question, I guess, is what precedence does this set for FIFA 22, which usually drops in September time?
I hope this isn't a precedence thing. I hope this is just... This is the first FIFA game they've tried to bring to the platform, and unfortunately, this is just how long it's took. And they have said all along that it'd be winter, and the end of winter is officially March the 20th, so it is technically winter.
So they didn't lie, at least, but cut it a little bit close, I guess.
Well, I've said it before, so I'm not going to drone on, because they're so close to the end of the season, and it's so long after the game's official launch, and it's an annualized franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I think this price point is absolutely critical to whether I'm going to pick this up or not.
Yeah,
because I'm not paying £30 for a game that's got a couple of months of life in it before the next one comes out.
Yeah, I mean, we do suspect that it's going to drop exactly the same as Madden and Jedi Fallen Order did, which was with a promotional weekend sale, which I think it usually runs like the whole length of launch through to like the following midweek, and it usually comes in under the £30 mark. How was Jedi Fallen Order? £25, I think, or $23.99 or something around that.
It was just shy of 25.
Yeah, I think I'd be happy paying that, but I've already challenged that many people in the community for a match. I don't think I can not buy it now.
see, for me, I've been quite consistent. I think for me, if it's under 25, I'll be considering it, but it'd be very much looking at what's my bank balance looking like in March and stuff like that, whether I make a decision to commit.
Certainly. But
if it drops with a free-to-play weekend and it's like sub 20 on sale, then I probably will pick it up, because then... But again, it's just waiting for that price.
Yeah, the 25 price point to me seems just right. I mean, that's what they released the Superstar edition of Madden at. Granted, it was on discount as well, and Jedi Fallen Order. So I wonder whether this is going to be EA's plan moving forwards with these titles. Whether it's going to be something like, you know, hit it at that mark and see how it does and take it from there.
Maybe we're being a bit too critical with EA, because before I've said, like, with it coming late to the platform, I hope they don't relaunch it like full price and when no one buys it, because everyone who is interested in the game has probably picked up elsewhere. I hope they don't go, oh well, there's no interest in this in Stadia, because they kind of did that before with like a Nintendo. It might have been the Wii version. They brought out a very pretty much skin and bones version of the game, and it just wasn't popular, so they just didn't stop producing. So it's like, well, maybe it's because you produced a bad version of the game.
Yeah, that's it. The iteration on Switch is very much, it's the 2017 base game, and all they do is refresh the rosters and the kits, essentially. They don't actually make the game from the ground up again, so it usually gets tarnished. It was IGN who actually, they gave it the same review score as the year prior, because nothing had changed in the actual game. So if they're going to do a terrible port, then they're going to get the same review as last year. Whereas obviously Stadia has a bit more power behind it than the Switch.
Yeah, but with Madden coming out on the free-to-play weekend and then also on sale during that free-to-play weekend, I think it's a quite nice way of actually releasing the games. Going, like acknowledging we know this game's late to this platform.
Yeah.
And this is almost like our way of... I don't want to use the word apologise, because I don't think they necessarily need to apologise for bringing it late. I don't think it's not something I think EA need to apologise for, because they brought it to the platform, and this is clearly how long they took. I'm sure they would love to have it there at launch. But it's like, it's also at this point not worth the full price.
Yeah, there's obviously a few things to consider as well. For one, a lot of the FIFA audience out there has been mocked of the game for saying that it's the same iteration every year, and it doesn't really change that much year on year. So for those, and again, I probably can be criticised for this as well, saying that how much do we bemoan FIFA 22 possibly being that late? But the reality is FIFA itself hasn't changed that much in the last 7-8 years. It's the same. Football is the same. Soccer is the same. There's only so much you can do with less than 12 months turnover of a game, and we know EA try and crank these out as on a yearly, well, they do on an annual basis. So the actual game in itself, I haven't bought it for my PlayStation for the last 2 years, I don't think, because it doesn't do enough year on year for me to merit it. So actually getting FIFA 21 on Stadia, it may not actually be that terrible, because at the end of the day, I haven't bought FIFA for the last 2 years, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite when it comes to saying, are we not getting 22 day and day, when reality is I'll probably just play FIFA 21 for the foreseeable, unless there's something drastic to kickstart that on.
FIFA's one of them where year on year I don't think you see any update, but if you went back to maybe 4 seasons ago compared to this season, you probably see quite significant change in how the game feels and how it plays. But the one thing I've always been critical of is, because everyone knows career mode's the best mode. It's the best mode. I love career mode, but EA seem to focus more on things like Ultimate Team, and career mode feels like it's almost slowly decaying, like features being removed, not being reinvested in, or like novel features like the contract talk stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been 18 and 19 they brought in, where actually after the first like round of contract discussions is actually just more tedious. Yeah. It's just playing an animation, it just took you longer to get through it.
Yeah. But I suppose in light of not boring our non-soccer football fans out there who are listening along, we'll wrap up this story. We'll call full time, I guess, for this particular story of the week. But I think one thing to bear in mind before we do move on is that the soccer season doesn't kick off in the States until March. So their MLS season, again, I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but maybe South America are exactly the same. They haven't really kick-started yet. So it's weird that it possibly, EA could have took this up as an opportunity to make a FIFA cloud version, which would, similar to FIFA Online that's in China, it's just like an ever-present platform as opposed to a yearly iteration.
Yeah.
But that's just something I think EA and the investors need to figure out behind the scenes. Is it worth it?
I'm sure they've had the discussions, but FIFA's too much of a cash cow.
Yeah, because we know Pro Evolution Soccer have gone that way of a yearly iteration. You just buy the DLC essentially for the new season. But we'll give that story a red card and we'll move on to the next one, because second story of the week. Believe it or not, gentlemen, the Embracer Group have been writing more checks, and they've done a big one. They've done a big one this week. The Embracer Group, obviously, who was a parent company of THQ Nordic, who've SpongeBob, and they've basically been buying up all these other studios left, right, and centre. We've kind of jokingly said they'll end up acquiring everyone if they're not careful. They may have picked up a studio you probably have heard of this week, Gearbox.
Yeah, that one came out of left field.
Just a little bit. So yeah, Borderlands developers Gearbox have been the latest studio to be acquired by the Embracer Group under that big, massive umbrella corporation. They've got THQ Nordic, they've got Koch Media, I don't know how you say it, Koch Media, Saber Interactive, of course, and Gearbox are probably most popular for their Borderlands franchise series. So that's crazy. £363 million in a deal based on tags and stuff. They have clarified that 2K will still be publishing the Borderlands titles going forward, so they're traditionally the people who would publish them. But yeah, 550 Gearbox staff are now coming under the Embracer umbrella. And I guess, Tom, I'll throw it over to you. You're the biggest Borderlands fan amongst us. What does this mean for Borderlands, the Embracer Group, and where did they get this money?
It means that Randy Pitchford walks away with a massive check in his pocket.
He's not actually walking away though. He's staying at the studio. He just gets a massive check in his pocket.
I suppose he gets his. I suppose he gets share options then in Embracer as well, which is always nice.
Assume so. I would assume there would be a share deal, like he's a lump sum and a share deal, and you keep your job.
Yeah. Now, typically within like the video game media, if you're not wanting to know about Randy Pitchford, CEO of Gearbox, he is traditionally quite controversial in his views and opinions on things. You just have to check out his Twitter account to actually see things like that. But what does it mean for Borderlands in general? I don't think it means much for the franchise whatsoever. I just think it's Embracer's way of, again, sort of getting their hands on a bit of extra money from that franchise. Borderlands is still, a tried and true loved franchise. Obviously the third one did incredibly well, again, despite the reviews of it not being as good, and the general like sort of like fan appreciation of it is a little bit down compared to 2. We've been quite vocal about that, Richie and I. But I still see there being a future for Borderlands. I see there being a future for spin-offs and so on. So I'm just hoping that nothing really changes too much with it, but if anything does change, we hope it's for the positive. Who knows? Who really knows at this point?
So my take on this is I'm starting to get a little bit worried about it, almost like a couple of super publishers almost forming, and less different publishers like on the market, because we've seen even things like Bethesda now a part of Microsoft. I know 2K is still going to be publishing Borderlands for the time for the time being, but you can imagine there's an expiry on that eventually, because THQ Nordic will want to eventually self-publish.
Oh yeah.
And you've got things like Tencent trying to pick up everything and anyone who's willing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a buyer's market.
It's going to be sometimes a bit worrying for competition, and but I think it's almost inevitable with the ballooning price of game development as well, that independent publishers, if you want to aim at AAA, it must be very difficult to actually get there.
Yeah, I mean this kind of, before we get to it later on, but the Stadia Games Entertainment story, like the cost, like their reason for shuttering those studios was in fact that the rising cost and game development and time and dedication required as a business model, as a startup, just clearly isn't feasible, even for a company as large and as cash rich as Google. So yeah, it's very much a buyer's market out there, and you're totally right, Richie, in saying like is it I suppose as people who play games, it's not worrying for us. It's just the risk of exclusives and it not coming to certain platforms and the conversations that have.
I think it could have a risk to players, because you get it's consolidation of power into less individuals, and they're going to be some of these people might be less risk adverse, or might stifle creativity. That's purely speculation. But the thing is, at the moment, one flop of a game can tank a medium-sized studio.
It's true.
You look at CD Projekt Red's share price with Cyberpunk, and Cyberpunk made huge amounts of profit, but their share price plummeted massively.
That's very true.
So
There's lots of chips on the table when it comes to this kind of thing. Obviously, I guess for Gearbox, it might give them a bit more financial security going forward. If, like you were saying, Tom, Borderlands 3 wasn't as well received. Are they famous for any other titles, any other games outside of Borderlands? That's the only people who I really associate them with.
No, Gearbox is very traditionally Borderlands.
Brothers in Arms.
Yeah. Duke Nukem, I think.
Wild.
Yeah, Duke Nukem Forever.
They did try with Battleborn, but I think that flopped.
Oh yeah. That's not even mentioned, I don't think, in the articles. But I suppose the interesting thing again from Embracer and THQ Nordic standpoint is it's bringing in another very nostalgic franchise. Borderlands obviously been around for quite some time now. The originals go back to PS3, wasn't it? Kickstarted on the PS3.
2009.
Yeah, and then they now have things like Time Splitters, SpongeBob, Destroy All Humans, Duke Nukem now. They've got a lot of franchises under their umbrella. Like we've seen THQ Nordic in particular just pick up IP, not because it's necessarily worth anything anymore, but they almost can see something in holding on to these franchises that they'll become cash rich in the future.
Well, the thing is, with IP, if IP isn't used, the value of it's going to depreciate, which means you can get it for cheaper. And then if you do something cool with it, the IP suddenly makes profit. That's probably what THQ Nordic and Embracer Group are really looking at. Taking stale IP, give them a bit of a revamp, and getting something out and regenerating the IP.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we live in the age of nostalgia where, a dead IP like Duke Nukem, you can pick it up, but if you hang on to that for 10 years and then come out with a reimagining of it, all it needs is enough to spark that nostalgic flame to go, you know what? I remember that from when I was a kid.
I think Duke Nukem, though, is the tone of the game and some of the values of that game are very much a place and time that I think that place and time is now past.
Yeah.
So
that should just be
controversy.
Let's just it was good at the time. We've moved on from that.
Maybe Randy Pitchford will get the lead on that project then. But yeah, like we said, they have clarified that 2K will be the publisher for the time being. But yeah, I think you're right, Richie. Eventually, you will want to self-publish, owning everything. It seems a bit odd.
It'll be whatever contract Gearbox have with 2K is probably being honoured. When that contract expires, that's probably... No. I mean, they may resign a new contract if it works for all parties, but...
Yeah, it's all about cost. But then the second follow-up story to this particular one is that not only did they splash the cash and acquire Gearbox for like $363 million, they weren't going to rest on the laurels there, because the Embracer Group also went out and dropped another $100 million on a company called Aspyr Media. Probably not heard of it. They kind of work in the shadows a little bit. But Aspyr Media, $100 million deal. They're a US developer, and they've made a name for itself for porting big franchises like Borderlands and Star Wars to new platforms. So this has kind of gone under the radar a little bit because of the Gearbox story, but 2K have a great relationship with Stadia. We all know about all the week's been on fire with stories of second-party deals and Amazon Luna going big on cloud gaming and self-publishing and development and such. And this purchase going under the radar actually has me quite energized for thinking that this studio, now part of Embracer, they're best known for porting games across, and I think there's a lot of companies out there now that are going to look forward to a cloud solution. And I think this could be a stealth acquirement for Embracer to get their games ported across to other platforms faster, with a certain quality standard that comes with big titles like Borderlands and Star Wars. I think
having a studio whose core experience is entirely focused around porting, I think it makes sense now when you're getting more and more platforms. You think, just in this generation, the PS5, Xbox Series X generation, basically we've had Amazon Luna, GeForce Now and Stadia also enter the fray.
Yeah.
Okay.
On top of PC, Xbox has got 2 iterations already. So Sony, you've got the PS5, Nintendo in there. So you're looking like 9-10 platforms.
So I think it's worth saying at this point that Aspyr are mostly known for porting to platforms like Mac and porting to more recent gen consoles like Switch ports of games and bringing older titles up to speed of the current gen. So like quite recently, Aspyr were involved in bringing the Jedi Knight series, Jedi Knight 2 and Jedi Academy across to Switch and to previous gen, I think it was. Star Wars Racer. Star Wars Racer as well, the classic pod racer. The Civ games, Sims, like a lot of different things. But You are right. I think that it would. I think this is Embracer's way of sort of trying to get these titles onto multiple platforms. The only thing I would say is you mentioned before about 2K and the relationship there. Obviously, we've got to remember here that this is the Embracer group now, and yes, 2K still have the rights to Borderlands, but as we've just discussed, 2K are probably going to lose that eventually. But that being said, it doesn't mean that Embracer can't get in the game. So, I mean, looking at through the list of what Aspyr have actually published before, it'd be great to see those titles again on many of these cloud-based platforms for certain. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, all the games you mentioned there, they all kind of hit that nostalgic vibe I was talking about, which we now know Embracer have the biggest catalogue of old titles ever. So it's quite interesting that, all those names you just rattled off in my head fit perfectly with a porting team. And you look at their Embracer's portfolio and what this team's done for a living for the last decade. It's kind of like a marriage made in heaven almost for working for a working relationship. But you're right there, Richie, as well, in saying like 9 platforms to develop for, and we saw how much pressure that added on to single companies like CD Projekt Red and how they struggled to get stuff across. And like, man, they struggled so bad, and I think they'll never see the end of it. So having a second company almost to run solely for this, we've seen PlayStation do it with Bluepoint, where they've outsourced stuff to Bluepoint, and they've made Demon's Souls, the Uncharted collection. They've put out some amazing ones. It was Shadow of Colossus, I think they did as well. So having these kind of supplementary studios is fantastic, and I think this could be well positioned for the cloud future and other things to develop for.
The one thing I noticed looking at the list of games that they've ported, because there's literally a wiki page on that, they have ported a lot of things to Mac. By far the most platform they've ported to Mac is Mac, which makes me think that they're porting PC versions from Windows to Mac, which actually gets me interested for what they're going to do with Stadia, because that means I've always championed Stadia as an alternative to PC gaming when it comes to mouse and keyboard input.
Yep.
So when they've ported things like Civ 3, Civ 4, Civ 5, Civ 6 all to Mac, and they've also done Civ 5 to Civ 6 to Linux. That gets me excited to what these could bring in terms of porting things to Stadia, in terms of games that are usually isolated to the PC space.
Yeah, exactly. So exciting stuff, but story went a bit under the radar because of the Gearbox thing. But big moves from both Tencent last week, Embracer Group once again. Their gravitational pull is getting more and more studios in-house. So big moves happening out there in the world of gaming, and I'm sure this isn't going to be the last we hear from these people. We're going to have a look into who owns these at some point, other than just them just buying people up left, right, and centre. The money must be coming from somewhere, right? They can't tell me SpongeBob and Destroy All Humans filled the coffers that much to go out and buy Gearbox.
THQ Nordic it was weird because like THQ went under and it rose as a Phoenix company and just immediately started buying everything. And for a couple of years before they'd even published anything, and they just kept buying things.
Yeah, so that's what happened. Maybe it's all part of Project Hailstorm, gentlemen, because that is our next story of the week. We had our friends over at 9 to 5 Google did a great breakdown of the latest Android APK file, which dropped onto app stores. For those who aren't aware of APK files, essentially you can have a look at the coding and you can find certain keywords and stuff and strip it apart and basically see how the app functions. And through that, the eagle-eyed people out there can pick out certain terms and phrases. And that has seen the return of Project Hailstorm. Specifically, one quote, which I'll give for you gentlemen out there. Found in the files, it says, and I quote, "Let Project Hailstorm by Stadia take your gaming experience to the next level." What on earth could that mean?
So I'm interested in the fact that it says Project Hailstorm by Stadia. It's that by Stadia part, and whether that's just because it's if that is just part of the project name, or whether that's part of the I'm going to call it a patent. It's not going to be a patent of some sort, but who knows what it is. I have no idea.
I'm starting to think it's less likely to be something like a hardware peripheral, which we previously speculated it could be, because I don't know how much a hardware peripheral would be. You'd claim that it'd be taking your game to the next level.
Yeah.
I think maybe is this more like platform-wide ray tracing or something along them sort of lines?
It's an interesting one because you've got to look at obviously like the the way it's written and what it could mean. So if you took out the word Project Hailstorm and inserted like a bit of hardware, so say it was like a Razer Kishi equivalent, let the Razer Kishi by Stadia take your game experience to the next level. That would work in terms of like a sentence
in a marketing sense, but this isn't in a marketing sense.
It's in app, exactly. So what does it mean? So then I'm starting to think more software. Is this maybe a refresh of Stadia Pro? Where it's less Stadia Pro Plus.
Stadia 2.0. Stadia 2.0.
Yeah, but when it says take your game experience
Stadia that everyone keeps asking for.
To the next level, obviously Stadia from the beginning have said that the Pro allows you to go to 4K resolution, 60 frames per second. It's the kind of it's the epitome of your gaming experience on Stadia. It's the best it can possibly be. Yeah. So I'd be curious if to know Project Hailstorm is like a rebranding of Pro, where it's like, oh, check out Project Hailstorm, take your game experience to the next level with 4K, 60 frames per second, games included. We're getting rid of the Pro title kind of deal.
It's potential to name at something like 6 or 8K, but I think that's...
Well, that's pushing it right now, I think.
I mean, it's hard. The hardware exists to do it, and Google definitely have the funds to be able to pull it off. But do many people have the TVs to do it, to utilize that? I just don't. I think that would be kind of money wasted at this point. And if it was going the other way of just like increasing the power of the hardware, so they're absolutely nailing 4K 60 on everything.
Yeah. Then
also that doesn't feel like that would be Project Hailstorm. I think that would just be a incremental upgrade. So I really don't know. That's why I'm leaning towards something like ray tracing or some sort of new technology rather than just improving the current stuff.
So there is a little bit more to it, where there's two distinct mentions within the APK file. That's commands for create Hailstorm request and enable Project Hailstorm.
It almost seems like an option to it's an option to switch on there.
Or off,
like a toggle, like
a toggle.
Almost like HD. This is why I'm thinking ray tracing, cross platform ray tracing.
Okay.
Because that would then work similar to how HDR works on Stadia, where you've got a toggle switch. When you toggle it, it'll send a request to the server and it'll enable it.
Okay. The difference is with HDR is very much compliant on the monitor or the screen that you're viewing on as well. Like not every
never use it.
No, that's true. So like with HDR, it's down to the specific device. Whereas ray tracing wouldn't be, because that's rendered on the gaming end. It would be the visuals you actually see. So I see less of that. Sorry to sort of sink that ship a little bit. But
your ideas are shit, Richie.
I'm just sort of thinking that there would be no reason for ray tracing to be something that you could choose to toggle off like HDR, because it doesn't matter what hardware, like physical screen you're using, what display you're using, ray tracing should still be able to be rendered. So whether it is ray tracing that comes as part of Pro, but then I don't know if that's a good idea, because I think you want to be sort of selling this hardware, you want to be selling this service, and you want to be trying to say, even at an entry level, you want to be getting people coming in and saying, look, guess what? You don't need to buy a GeForce RTX branded graphics card, because we've got ray tracing on our free model for gaming. You just have to buy the games, and you know what? You've got it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love them to do that, but HDR is behind. We're
going back on the HDR game again.
I know. I'm just using that as an example of graphical technology. But I could see if they were going to do like full ray tracing across the board, I could see it behind the Pro thing. 4K and 5.1 surround sound like HDR. I mean, I don't want to encourage people to get Pro. So
yeah, I'm definitely inclined to agree with that. I'm just not 100% sold on whether that should be, again, now, like going back to it, whether that should be sold as a Project Hailstorm. I mean, granted, the project names could mean anything. It doesn't have to directly link into sort of like the capability of it. I mean, God, look, we had the controller was Project Yeti. I mean, it doesn't look anything like a Yeti to me. So
the white one was
like winter and icy themes for it.
Yeah, it's obviously it's leaned towards something so much so that they feel they need to cover up what it is within the coding, whereas a lot of stuff just slip through the net. So part of this story also focuses on things like voice chat being broken down into voice chat game and voice chat party. So it looks like we are potentially going to be able to have a conversation, gentlemen, without the need to be in an actual game through the controller. There's also a couple of things for Android TV updates, mouse and keyboard support. There's a promotion apparently for July. They found coding that says, sorry, this code can only be redeemed during the month of July. So that's
£10 off games.
Yeah, it could just be rearing its head again. Some more email notification settings to toggle on, and because Stadia and the people who make the app are very well aware that people drill into these things, they've also got a little gag in there as well at the bottom, which is that Stadia can run on a 56k modem, which we know is not a thing. They've added in the little message says Stadia has harnessed the latest in amplitude modulation transmission technology to deliver the ultimate gaming experience, which is obviously rubbish because a 56k modem will not be able to run Stadia. But again, nice little in-joke there in the coding.
What would you do if it actually was true? That wasn't a joke. It was like, we've got this running on a 56k modem somehow.
I mean, I know Doom can run on a pregnancy test, according to whoever that crazy person out there is. So I've been surprised before, but I think we can all agree, whatever Project Hailstorm is, we all hope that it's not just something boring and dull. Imagine if it does come out and it's just like, it's just price increase. Sorry.
Wow.
That would be bad. Anyway, gentlemen, let's get away from APK files and talk about the exciting things about Stadia, and that is the games, because right off the back of the biggest news story of the week, we got a slew of games. Obviously, FIFA was one of them. We put it at the top of the show because we're all FIFA enthusiasts here, and we can't wait to see it on the platform. However, one game that kind of caught everyone by surprise is the Yakuza game spin-off from Sega, Judgement, or Judgement Remastered, has been announced for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, so the two next-gen or current-gen consoles now, and Stadia. No PC. So
yeah, that was a shock.
This, for me, is the first example of a game that is putting Stadia in the next-gen, current-gen bracket with those big powerhouses, and it's kind of a PC exclusive, I guess, in a way, to Stadia.
It does appear to be that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know how else you can read into it.
Wasn't it originally a PS4 exclusive?
And
now they've opened up to other platforms?
Yeah, so the spin-off was PS4 exclusive, and then I think it's done that well, and the exclusivity's now ended. Because Yakuza was traditionally Japanese, so it's Sony, it lives and breathes on Sony platforms, but the last year or so, the latest Yakuza game was exclusive to Xbox. It was one of their launch games, actually. So they've kind of broke the mold a little bit, and now we get this, which, PC, if you want to play this game on your PC, Stadia, unless it comes to obviously a Game Pass, I guess, on Xbox. But this puts Stadia in the next gen only conversation, I guess, gents. And I've got no history with the Yakuza franchise. I hear so many people talk about it and sing its praises. It's very, very well revered.
This could be your first step into that world.
I mean, it could be. It reminds me of like some kind of Grand Theft Auto, Sleeping Dogs kind of mix match coming April 23rd. Curious, just seems so. I don't really know what to say. Have you either of you two checked out the Yakuza games before?
I've not. I've got friends who are talking about in private messaging groups and stuff, talking about Yakuza Like a Dragon at the moment, which I mean, granted is very different to the Yakuza franchise in general.
Is that the turn based?
It's very tongue in cheek, very JRPG. It's meant to be a bit of a piss take, I suppose, more than anything. But it's clearly a beloved franchise. There's a lot of people out there who do, as you say, rave about it. I also know nothing about this franchise, and I'm very surprised, but glad to hear that we've got a deal like this on the table, because it clearly shows that these publishers, and particularly huge names like Sega as well, want to continue working with Stadia. These deals have probably though been done for a while, so it's difficult to say sort of like when this was actually agreed upon. But once again, this announcement hasn't officially come from Stadia yet, has it? This is only from Sega's actual tweet, the actual announcement of the game. So we wait to hear more about it, really.
Yeah, hopefully they'll say something official. So just to be clear as well, Judgement takes place in the same universe as the Yakuza franchise, but tells an entirely separate story from the mainline games. While it uses familiar settings to incorporate recognizable elements, such as the Tojo clan and crime drama, you won't need an extensive Yakuza background to enjoy it. You play as Takayuki Yagami, a disgraced lawyer turned private detective who uncovers a much larger conspiracy. It's a gripping story with a different tone from the Yakuza games, but still has some of the same storytelling qualities. So it sounds like a good kind of entry point then for someone, because like you, Tom, somehow Yakuza 5 made it to PlayStation, and I'd never heard of these games prior to like the last 2 years, I feel. And as someone who's gamed all my life, I can't, like, how was it not released in the West or something potentially earlier on? And
I think it's always been here. I think we just, I don't know.
It's one of them franchises. I've always heard of it, but I've never really heard anyone talk about it. I've always knew it existed, but I've never really paid much attention to it.
Yeah, because you said they've got Like a Dragon, Tom. They've got all the 1 through 5, I think. There's Yakuza 0, which I think is another like prequel version of the game. And yeah, I know the latest one got a bit of shit for changing the gameplay to more turn-based strategy, which annoyed the entire fan base, but it's still been well received. And now we've got this Judgement remaster coming to Stadia. So, but I think the biggest telling point for us again is that, ironically, off the back of Stadia closing the studios, we got FIFA announced, and then we've got this announced, and a bunch of other games we're going to get onto, which just shows you that you don't need your first-party studios necessarily to keep the games coming, and Stadia is still alive and well. But yeah, check that one out. April 23rd, it'll be dropping, and hopefully well received as well. I'll throw this one over to you then, Tom. Another game has been rated for Stadia, which caught us off midweek, and this is one I had heard of. Is it just Terraria? Is that how it's pronounced? Terraria?
Terraria.
Yes. Now, I messaged you straight away about this one and said it reminds me of Stardew Valley, which I have played. To which you then explain what it is. So do you want to give the folks out there a little rundown of how popular this game is?
Oh yeah, it is. It is incredibly popular, particularly amongst the the younger age bracket of children at the moment. And it has been for quite a while. It's what I would call a two-dimensional Minecraft in a nutshell. That is essentially what it is. You are spawned into a generated world, a rather large world, depending on your settings when you create it. And you essentially have to, dig, construct, build your way to completing the game. Really, it's sort of like a survival world. The good thing about Terraria, I think, is that it actually has almost like it has real world bosses in there as well. So when you start getting to certain times of day or certain crafting certain items, you start to get these bosses spawning. When you enter dungeons, there's bosses that spawn into the overall world. And at that point, then they can start to destroy your shit, quite frankly. It's a fantastic game. Like I say, kids love it. I for one, love it as well. And I'm going to be sinking quite a lot of time into this game when it comes to Stadia, because it's been a while. It's been a while, old friend. But I'm ready to get back into it. As you say, though, another similar title would be something like Stardew Valley, in that sort of like 2D pixel art-esque. I want to call it sort of like with its adventure elements. But Stardew Valley is very much more like a Harvest Moon type farming sim in a way, isn't it, really? And Terraria is, I would say, very close to Minecraft in terms of its gameplay. But it's definitely not one, if you've not played it before, I would strongly recommend people give it a go, because despite the art style on the surface, it is a very, very good game. Very good game.
And out of the absolute blue as well. I think this isn't something that if you give me a list of 100 games that would come to Stadia, this would not have been on my radar as a move Google would have potentially went for. But
this would have been a game I would have listed as Stadia needing, personally. This is the kind of game that I would... maybe it's more on a personal level, but this is the kind of game that I would love to see on the platform. So all we have at the moment is a PEGI rating. The PEGI ratings don't always guarantee that it means it's going to come immediately. It is listed as being released on the 29th of January, whereas we're already past that date.
Yeah, that's what PEGI ratings are. They're just...
Yeah, take it with a pinch of salt. Those PEGI ratings typically mean that's when it's actually been rated, not when it's been released.
They've released the certification rather than the game release.
So there'll be other things going on behind the scenes, but I'm hopeful for a Tuesday announcement. It may be longer than that, though. it may be longer.
This kind of goes back to our theory of it was a quiet start to the year, but as with most years, the gaming industry starts to come back alive. Everyone comes back from the holidays, and it starts to ramp up again. And I guess we've got there's some more stories of new games coming soon. But yeah, I suppose we've got Judgement Remastered now announced. We've got I'm going to say it wrong again. Terraria again coming.
Terraria.
And then a couple of other smaller titles alongside the rumor of Resident Evil. Of course, Google paid that 10 million cash milk to get that across. So where is that? So I don't know whether this is this just being stacked for a Tuesday night announcement on a blog post, or is this potentially building to another Connect in the near future? Because we know I just expect something to kickstart the year with an announcement, and we were expecting one on the back end of last year, and we didn't get one. We got the good stuff event instead.
An announcement. We got an announcement.
The announcement we are.
And I'm just thinking, there's a Ubisoft Forward no doubt due in the near future, and again, the year, as much as a shit show 2020 was, the world will go on, and all these announcements will be put to the table. But I just think after the back of the closure of the game studios, there needs to be something in the pipeline for the future. We made it very clear on Monday when we had our kind of live broadcast of the news breaking that we were all agreed that if now more than ever they need to come out and say something about their future roadmap for the consumer out there. Us three people who are invested, want to buy games, we need that clear message that yes, the games are coming thick and fast. And I don't want to hear that from Sega, from 505 Publishing, from the Embracer Group. I need to be told by the platform. Just like PlayStation tell me their games are coming. Just like Nintendo and Xbox tell me their games are coming, with a clear roadmap, please. It's a long year, 2021, and it's not getting any shorter for anybody else. Just a roadmap, that's all I'll take.
I think that's fair. I think it's very fair.
A little caveat to this story as well, I guess, that I picked out was 505 Games publishing it, who published Control.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me see that Control come over as well. So behind the scenes, these deals are happening with publishers left, right and centre, 2K. Whether it's Gearbox being bought or whatever, the contracts are happening with Stadia. They just don't seem to be talking about it at all. That's the problem. It's all quiet once again. Yeah. But anyway,
we've been there before.
We've been there before.
Touching on slightly on Control, I'm now one of. I don't really care if it comes to the platform because I now have it on PS5, the Ultimate Edition. So
wow,
because it's not they haven't brought it to Stadia, they've now lost that purchase.
Well,
it would have been an almost certain purchase for me.
Well, yeah,
I have it now, so
the more time goes on. Actually, on the flip side of that story, did you see Amazon Luna got Monster Boy this week?
This past week as
well, yeah. So it's starting to come back the other way now, where Luna's getting games that are already on Stadia. Why isn't it happening the other way? Give me Sonic Mania, give me Control.
Yes.
All these cloud versions of these games. I know they run on different Linux and whatever the web-based Microsoft Windows thing that Luna runs off is.
Get Aspyr Media porting them over.
Yeah, get someone on that job. So you've got the money now. Remember, Phil, you've sectioned off that branch of Stadia to specifically
You've got 150
focus.
developers no longer working on developing games.
So something we need again. That's the kind of thing they came out with that announcement this week. There needs to be some kind of like counteract business move for that to say, right, we're not doing that anymore, Mr. Investor. Because we're now focusing on this to make Stadia better. What is that thing? What is that new focus? And again, as we creep towards the financial year, we should hear some a bit more clarity, I think, on what, as a business, they're switching towards. But if all else fails, gentlemen, you can always just get drunk and start your own vineyard. Because the next story of the week is 100 Days has also been, not rated for Stadia, sorry, it's been announced over on the Broken Arms Games Twitter page that it's coming to Steam and also Google Stadia. So Tom, when you heard about this game, you were thrilled because it seems right up your orchard, I guess, vineyard alley. So yeah, 100 Days. It's a vineyard wine making simulator, and it looks brilliant.
What more could you ask for, eh? What more could you ask for, really?
This is what I wish farming sim was, to be honest.
I live for these sim games. Like I don't know what it is about it. Little Big Workshop has just had me absolutely addicted, and I just want more games like that where you can just sink time into it resource managing, building up your little enterprise and just ticking off that technology tree and stuff like that. Oh my God, I need it now. Come on.
Yeah, it looks in the features to go through, like you can do soil analysis, grape variety, wine tasting processes, customize your bottles, choose your distribution networks, your logistics setup, your branding.
What if Project Hailstorm is a way of bringing like taster vision to Stadia, so you can taste the wine you made?
Obviously, I think definitely a more mouse and keyboard focused game, but yeah, I just love how the trailer for this game actually incorporates real life people at a vineyard tasting wine and stuff. It's like, I bet these developers were just pissed half the time they were making this game.
Yeah. Oh, we're going back to the vineyard. Why? Research. It's for research.
It's all for research. So there's
expense it.
Yeah, there is certainly a live stream in here somewhere. May 13th that gets released. Yeah. So again, and I like the fact that we're getting these different style titles now coming across, because I've been a big advocate of saying we need more mouse and keyboard style PC games and ports. There's so many out there that lend themselves so well. So surprise, but a pleasant surprise nonetheless, coming out of Stadia this week. So yeah, games are coming thick and fast, but we'll give you a quick couple of updates, and then we'll wrap up the show with probably the biggest news story of the week. But like I said, we don't want to talk about it too much. CrisTales, my personal story. I've been working on a port for a long time now. That's going to be coming in July. I don't have a specific date for you just yet, gentlemen, but I've decided July is a good time for my memoirs to be released. So obviously not really. CrisTales will be coming sometime in July for those who are excited, because it did get delayed from last November initially. It got pushed back a little bit, so that's coming out in July. Speaking of delays, we should probably mention the Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. We know it's not been clarified for Stadia, but this goes back to a title that was due out in the near future, if you check out our post show, and it's a Ubisoft game. We're getting Ubisoft Plus, hopefully one day, outside of the States, and we don't know anything about it yet, so hopefully this delay, Tom, will allow them to bring it over to Stadia, just like Cyberpunk.
We hope.
But any surprise that it was delayed after the backlash it got up on its launch?
I mean, there's a bit of there's some sort of level of irony, isn't there? Really, that Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time needs to be delayed a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, we know what the general gaming community's sort of response was to that initial thing. We've joked about it before as well, talking about PS3 graphics and so on. If they need more time, they need more time. We're going to go through that same mantra once again that we've said again and again and again. Good game, etc., etc. But yeah, like I say, no real surprise, I suppose, at the end of the day. I think a lot of things that are slated for this year that have only recently been announced will suffer from that same thing. I think 2021 may end up being dry for new games, unless they've been announced for quite some time. Yeah, is what I think.
The thing is, what we have to realize is, because of 2020 being the year of COVID,
the dumpster fire of a year.
Yeah. We haven't really felt the knock-on effects of that in the gaming industry yet, because most of the games that came out in 2020 would have been in late-stage development.
Yeah, that's true.
So the stuff that's in early and medium stages of development, they'll be hammered massively. So yes. I am expecting this to be quite a quiet year for brand new for new games in general, just because last year studios were learning to adapt. The pandemic is still ongoing.
Yeah, especially the big titles. Obviously, they have the financial clout to suddenly allow people to remote work from home, but the smaller studios who don't have the money to suddenly give everyone at home an expensive top-end computer and such. And we've heard stories where Stadia's actually been brilliant for people working from home on development, because it's allowed them to tweak the game in the cloud and make changes on the fly. But yeah, you're totally right, Richie. The impact, probably, it's going to be a long tail end of delays, until people can ramp back up.
The effects of 2020, I think we're going to be still feeling the game industry well into 2022, maybe 2023.
So that's something to keep our eyes. But yeah, you're right, Tom. Ironically, the Sands of Time has suffered a delay off the back of it. So hopefully it gives them enough space now to polish it and really make it probably the remaster it deserves to be, because it's such a classic game. Other titles that get a bit of update. The Crayta team announced this past week that crowdplay is coming now as part of Stadia. That's dropping in February. Actually, I say in February. That's obviously this month, 10th. So actually, by the time you're probably listening to this, it's either due out the day after tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, some point this week. Might be yesterday if you listen to it on Friday.
I'd expect this in Tuesday's blog, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Richie. I think so. It was confirmed. So obviously, crowdplay allows people to jump into a specific instance of your game. Crayta is, I guess, ideal for that. You drop the link into your chat. Someone gives you the link, and you can just join them straight away into their gaming instance, which is good. We haven't really played much more of Crayta, I don't think. I've been that distracted with AAA games the entirety of last year and beyond. You haven't even mentioned it, but I've finished Valhalla.
Hey!
Finally,
congratulations.
So, I've completely got everything. I caught all them damn fish. For anyone out there, did all that, did the whole final mop up, got all the legendary, killed all the horrible zealot people, and my final clock-in time was 126 hours.
Oof.
So
wow.
yeah,
I see. I broke over 100 hours, and I didn't clean up everything. So you play at a much faster rate than me.
To be fair, I did a lot of mop up earlier. Either way, great game, loved it. Looking forward to the DLC. The only disappointing thing with the whole Ubisoft model of mopping things up is that now I'm fully empowered and I've got all the secret weapons. I won't spoil it for anyone there, but there's certain weapons that kind of in that age they're hanging around Great Britain, I suppose, that you can wield. And now I've got them. I've got no game to enjoy them with because I've finished everything. So it was kind of like the last roaring moment of success and nothing. So I'm looking forward to the DLC when that does drop, which knowing Ubisoft, we usually get it at the turn of the next year. So again, I'm expecting a Ubisoft forward with a new date for Riders Republic, a new date for Far Cry 6, some updates on that.
Yeah.
Ubisoft Plus rollout potentially, and then all the DLC for Immortals, Watch Dogs, and Assassin's Creed. So got stuff ready to go, definitely. Final news story of the week, gentlemen. I guess we should probably focus on it. We should probably talk about it a little bit. Elephant in the room kind of story. Stadia Games and Entertainment was shuttered this past week. So for those who haven't been checking out Stadia news, who haven't been looking at any of the other content creators, there was a big outcry as all of a sudden, Tom, 150 game developers unfortunately lost their jobs and were
Are you comparing this to the likes of Alderaan being destroyed?
No, but I realised as I started talking, I started going into that pop culture reference, and then I went too deep into it to backtrack.
Yeah.
So, I guess we covered it enough on Monday's kind of breaking news episode on the channel. If you want to go and get our deeper thoughts on that, go check it out. But we couldn't do the news without addressing this. Yeah. Obviously, we are now 6 days detached from the story. The temperatures, as usually, bubbled down a little bit more. We've had a bit more time to think about it and how it's impacted Stadia and the wider thing. I think me, personally, obviously I acknowledge anyone who's lost a bit of confidence in the platform. It's totally understandable when they come out and pull a big project like this. Any business who shutters any large-scale projects, especially one that's such a fledgling young startup like Stadia essentially still is right now, it will come with some disappointment. And again, I am disappointed in this. I wanted to see what exclusive games they were going to make. Several days detached from that, I've still been playing Stadia. I've still enjoyed Stadia. I found out that FIFA's now finally got a date, and new games that are coming, like the Yakuza remastered game, Judgement, is coming. And I'm starting to kind of just feel now that nothing's really changed. Yes, we're not getting exclusives in a year or two, but I also don't feel as hard hit as I probably was on Monday when the news dropped.
Yeah.
And I'll still play Stadia. So
I don't know.
I'm
in the same space as you, to be honest, where I am disappointed because it feels like one of the things about Stadia that I was looking forward to, that being the first party studios utilising the technology in unique ways, that's now off the table. But that doesn't mean second and third party studios won't be doing that instead. And that Stadia will be basically taking the talent that they've acquired and making them into almost like a support team to help other developers get their games onto the platform and utilise the technology. I think it's ultimately, for me, it ultimately comes down to a financial decision. Cost of games development is ballooning. The pandemic hasn't helped. and they've probably realised the better. It's not necessarily them going bleeding money in it. They probably thought, well, it's a smarter business decision. It's better for the platform now to utilise our resources in a different way.
Yeah,
and that's all I hope.
Absolutely. Upon like having a bit of time to reflect on the news, I actually woke up the next day thinking, do you know what? This is a great thing for Stadia. While I do see those, those points there, I do think having that cash flow now to really invest in the games that let's be quite frank, the games that the people on the platform have been crying for since day one, they're more likely to happen now as a result of this, in my opinion, because we've now got this extra cash flow that can be injected into Activision to try to gain, the Call of Duty titles and so on. And everywhere you go, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Reddit, Facebook, wherever you go, even the blog posts, you've got people saying, great, but where's Call of Duty and so on. Maybe now this is the time that we are going to see that. Yes, it is slightly disappointing that we won't get to see the full integration of the next generation of gaming through the cloud, for example, and having seen all that stuff with Stadia research and development showing off the capability of what could be achieved, that makes it a little bit bittersweet. But the reality is, I think that at the moment, the way the platform currently is, what it needs is the AAA titles. And it does not mean that in the future that Stadia Games and Entertainment may not make a comeback. It means currently, yes, that is not the direction that Stadia and that Google, quite frankly, want the platform to go in. But it doesn't mean it's written off forever. There is still the potential for it in future.
I think that was the biggest thing. Like, the knee-jerk reaction was, no games are coming, and again, journalists and Twitter and the internet ran away with it. Like, Stadia's dead. The problem with putting out a press conference, and this harks back to the naming convention. Stadia Games and Entertainment. If you put that in a headline, Stadia Games and Entertainment closes down, how many people will see that headline and presume that is Stadia in its entirety? That is a bad naming convention that's came back to bite them in the ass. Instead of calling it, like, I don't know, Cloud Studios 51. Oh, Stadia closes Cloud Studios 51. That's not as harsh. Stadia Games and Entertainment closes down is a very bad banner to put on news articles with IGN, Kotaku, Eurogamer. Because then those who aren't in the ecosystem and aren't aware of it like we are, they're just casual gamers, they'll go, I knew it. Google Graveyard.
I think
there it is.
The thing is, with Stadia is in quite a unique situation where it fumbled its launch, so the pretty much gaming press were immediately negative on it, and then basically went months and months and months and months and months and months without really paying any attention to it at all. Mm-hmm. So the readers of like an IGN, that's their impression of Stadia, the launch.
Yeah.
Yep. Apart from the occasional article, and then the next thing is it's closing down. However, those who are in the ecosystem have seen it's been a fantastic platform since day one for me.
Yeah.
It's got issues. I'm not going to deny it's got issues. There's a lot of things it could work on. Where's my search bar?
That's what they're going to invest in now, a search bar. They've got 100 millions to pump into that search bar.
But the technology absolutely works, and the main thing they're lacking at the moment is people on the platform and the games. And I think the games will bring people to the platform.
Yeah.
And it's also getting into other markets. You also see on things like Facebook that I'm in this country where Stadia isn't officially launched. How do I get access to Stadia?
Yeah, I think the wider concept of, like, as a business, we've all said since day one, if you have decent internet, this works. And we've also said since day one, the internet isn't regressing. It's going to get better globally, year on year, day on day. Like, the amount of millions that are pumped into the global infrastructure of internet and 5G and cellular data, that's just increasing tenfold year on year on year. It's not going backwards.
Need to sort their act out, though.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other...
Get their act together. Because there's some networking problems in terms of things like hardware and stuff that shouldn't be on the consumer to fix.
Yeah, that's a whole different kettle of fish into itself. But in terms of Stadia, like, Google are not just going to drop this now. They've invested so much money. Like, closing a game studio that's not put anything out, let's be clear, they've not shown us anything yet. They have the look behind the curtain. They could have looked at all the project stuff, spoke to Jade Raymond, Shannon stood still and went, right, where are we at, guys? And they've said... another 3 years is going to be, and we need another 100-odd million. Yeah. As a business, that doesn't look as good because they haven't put anything out. They're not tried and tested. This isn't a Naughty Dog who have a portfolio of amazing titles. This isn't acquiring Bethesda who've got studios who are famed for putting out big franchise open world games. This is a brand new company that's got nothing to its name yet. So maybe a year and a bit in, pulling the plug is a smarter decision. And like you were alluding to, Tom, taking that, what did we say on Monday? How much did Cyberpunk take to make? Was it something like 300 million?
300 million.
Yes.
That's for one game that took, 7 years to make? Take that 300 million as a Google business model and apply it to, hey, Capcom, there's 10 million. Give us 2 Resident Evil franchises that will bring players to us. Hey, EA, there's 10 million. Give us the next FIFA game day and date so we can pull people in. I think that's where the money is, in hindsight, after Monday's kickoff, is clearly much better spent to grow the platform, and that's what they need to do right now.
It is.
Back to CG Projekt Red as well, you have to acknowledge the fact that, one, they were coming off a massive hit in The Witcher 3, so they had money piling in. The Witcher TV show was a massive success. I'm guessing they would have got some kickback in some way, shape or form from that.
Yeah, the same.
And the studio was already established. They increased in size and scope.
Yep.
But they weren't starting off from nothing.
Yep.
So a lot of that 300 million may have been mitigated by the profit from The Witcher.
Yeah. And I do very much feel like we all, naturally, as fans, as enthusiasts, we fall into a bit of an echo chamber. And as much as we try and detach ourselves from that, it's very hard not to be defensive and passionate about not only games, but the service and the platform. And remember, this is, again, it's a business at the end of the day. And in the article, they clearly said, like, we believe this is the best path to build Stadia in a long-term, sustainable business that helps grow the industry. Again, it may seem like, yes, it's crap, it's a bit shit that we're not getting our first-party games, but that, by all means, doesn't mean that Stadia is dead. It doesn't mean the door's being closed. And quite frankly, anyone out there who says that is a bit short-sighted in terms of, like, companies' business models. A tech company like Google isn't going to drop a cloud platform because they've had a bad run at the first year or so. This isn't a mobile app. This isn't a bit of software that runs Word documents online. This is a platform they're building. And
yes.
yeah,
a lot
it sucks,
of the Google
but still.
Graveyard stuff have been apps that have been superseded by something else in Google's library as well. That's something to always bear in mind. So the Graveyard looks a bit worse than it actually is. But I think it's worth acknowledging, though, the developers many of whom might have moved their families to get in this job, excited about the project's going to work, and a year in, I've now basically been told that the thing you've moved here for isn't happening anymore. Well, they're not necessarily losing the jobs. Google have said they're going to be looking for roles for all of them.
Yeah.
But it's not the job they wanted, and a lot of these people might have young families that have uprooted and things. So all I can do is wish them the best, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll get some kind of... Again, I don't know what redundancy laws are around the world, but I know over in the UK, generally, if your job title's no longer... One, they have to find you a job within the same company. So again, there's opportunities there, at least, rather than just a straight nothing to do. Yeah. And we said on Monday, obviously, the higher-ups will have had probably a decent payout of this, similar to Ninja. When Mixer closed down, he got paid his full compensation for his contract agreement anyway. So hopefully there was legal ramifications there, which mean these particular developers will have a little bit of a kind of nest egg to take with them into their future careers. But yeah, it's obviously it's not a great story, but I think...
For me, it's not necessarily about the money for the developers, because they'll be getting paid whether they're made redundant or found a new job within Google Stadia. Yeah. It's about the effect on their life and what some of these people might have sacrificed for this job already.
Yeah, very true, very true. But... yeah, I don't really know what's why. I mean, looking at the article itself, if you break it down word for word, it is obviously a public-facing article. Phil Harrison probably didn't pen this himself. It was probably a team of lawyers and script writers and everything to make sure it was worded perfectly. But there is stuff in this that does give hope, and again, helping the industry grow, expanding efforts to help game developers and publishers take advantage of the platform. There's nothing in here that doesn't say Stadia and not spending money in making these partnerships. So we know Harmonix, we know Outcasters from Splash Damage, we know they've got a deal with Supermassive, who made Until Dawn and stuff coming. So it doesn't, nothing prevents bigger and better deals like this being made in the future. And like you said, Richie, it doesn't stop them creating their own games going forward. It just means now they're not doing it in-house.
And
that's
you never
it.
know. In 2 or 3 years, Google might go and buy a Bracer Group and own half the gaming industry.
Yeah. But Microsoft did it. Well, we laugh, but Microsoft did it and acquired the entirety of Bethesda. In a different alternate universe, Google could have went out and bought Bethesda and then suddenly had 10 studios under their umbrella already. So we said earlier in the show, it's a buyer's market right now. They might not want to nurture them internally, but that doesn't stop them going dropping a bombshell on someone else and acquiring Sega or something like that. Who knows, gentlemen? But I think we can all agree we're not going anywhere. Stadia's not going anywhere. And you know what? If this is shaking your confidence a little bit, it doesn't matter. You can put your controller down. Stadia's still there. That's the great thing with it. You don't have to throw a console out. You don't have to... If you decide to come back to Stadia in 5 years' time when it's flourishing and it's got loads of new games, guess what you need to do? Just pick up your controller again. Log back in. Sign back up for Pro. You've not lost anything, everybody. If you want to play the games, they're there. You can play them, remember, with no downloads, no updates, within a matter of seconds. So just, it's not the end of the world. Open the door, go outside, look at the sky. It's real. But
is that a cloud?
Yeah, possibly. But
it was raining earlier,
cloud.
I think we just want to wrap the episode up. Said, if you look back at our Monday discussion, obviously we probably were a bit more heightened. The news had just dropped like half an hour prior to us going live.
I woke up from a nap to that news, and then we pretty much let's go on stream talk. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. You were asleep.
That was like literally in the morning, 20 minutes before we went live. I was asleep.
Yeah. So I suppose we'll wrap up the news this week with the end of the article from the blog post. Our goal remains focused on creating the best possible platform for gamers and technology for our partners, bringing these experiences to life for people everywhere. That does not read, we're closing everything down, the lights are being switched off, we're cancelling everything. It certainly does not. So, yes, we need a roadmap still. Yes, we need to know what games are coming in the future. But I, for one, along with you two gentlemen, will be here to bring you the news and topics as part of the Sounds of Stadia podcast, because that's what we do here at Sounds of Stadia. So that brings us to an end of the show for this week. Don't forget, if you enjoyed our conversation, our news topics, and our new refresh palette of things coming along, don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe to the channel. And share the video with your friends so we can get the news out there that Stadia's not dead, and we're here to celebrate in the cloud together on this platform that, quite frankly, works. Any last things from you two gentlemen this week?
I think we've covered a lot this week.
Yeah,
but just a community shout out once again to say thank you all. We really do appreciate everything that you've done for us so far, and just being part of this crazy journey. And we've got so many good things to look forward to in the future. So thank you for sticking with us.
And Richie, we're about to go record your first ever, your inaugural show of Sounds of Stadia SideQuest.
You've actually segued me in now, because I was thinking what I'd like to do is, I hope everyone enjoys the new lineup of shows, and reach out to us with any questions you have for the shows, or your feedback and how you think we're doing. Anything we could improve on. And thank you very much for sticking with us to 1K.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So don't forget, things still are going ahead. Our live streams still happen every Thursday night. We had an absolute blast, by the way. We've not even mentioned it yet, playing Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris this past Thursday. That was absolutely great fun. We had a wonderful time solving puzzles, wearing skimpy outfits as our gods, as we were, getting stuck, getting set on fire, fighting giant crocodile monsters, all the things that you would expect.
Balancing on ropes.
Balancing on ropes was good. So, our Thursday night live streams are continuing. We've got our new community show that's starting soon with its pilot episode going live in the imminent future, Stadia Hotspot. The post show is refreshed to SideQuest. The podcast will always still be here as well, and we'll still have our first looks and everything else. But thank you very much for this week. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
And I've been Richie.
This has been Sounds of Stadia, everyone. Have a great week and live on, just like Stadia does. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.